friends, welcome back to Cake Over Keto, your non-diet podcast that stands up against diet culture so you can eat the goddamn cake without anxiety and guilt. I am Mel Wakeman, registered nutritionist, intuitive eating practitioner, non-diet counsellor and lover of cake. I specialise in disordered eating and recovering from chronic dieting, weight and body image concerns, all through a weight-inclusive lens. Cake Over Keto is a fortnightly slice of food and body truth with dollops of compassion and sprinkles of salvation. I am here standing in your corner, calling out the diet industry bullshit whilst providing a safe, healing space for those on their way to food and body freedom. There may be talk of cake and carbs, nutrients that are essential to life. Yes, cake is a nutrient, and necessary for me at least if I don't want to poke someone in the eye with a pencil. And so that you know, I may mention body weight, calories, and the O word, but there will always be context. Please be mindful if you are triggered by these though. Now, if you've ever tried to practice intuitive eating and you just couldn't get it, this episode, 5 reasons why intuitive eating isn't working for you, is for you. Now, if this is you, please hear me when I say you are not a failure. Being able to eat intuitively is not a qualifying factor for healing your relationship with food. It can be bloody tricky, and in this episode, I'm going to explain why it can be hard, but also know that intuitive eating is not about perfection, nor is it a pass or fail test. So keep listening for more. At the end, I'll dip into my pick and mix, which is a smorgasbord of intuitive eating resources to help you cultivate a trusting connection with your body and its needs. So without further ado, go get yourself a cuppa, find somewhere comfy, and join me for 20-ish minutes of insight and enlightenment. And while the kettle boils, if you'd like to get in touch, please do. You can find me on Instagram at cakeoverketo. Also, there's me at Mel_Wakeman_RNUTR. And I'm in my food freedom community on Patreon as Mel Wakeman, all one word. Or email me at mel@wakemannutrition.com. I would love to hear your experiences on this one. See you in a moment. Intuitive eating can be a powerful tool to help you heal your relationship with food and your body. It was one of the approaches to food that helped me make peace with and learn to listen to my body after years of trying to manipulate it and punishing it in the process. Intuitive eating taught me to become the expert of my body, to honour my internal cues, to guide my food decisions rather than rely on external food rules, diet plans, digital gadgets and so on as the dictator of what I should and shouldn't eat. Ooh, go check out the last episode about MyFitnessPal for more on those. As intuitive eating has gained traction and grown in popularity since the mid-90s, it's kind of been elevated as the gold standard for creating a more peaceful relationship with food and body, especially for individuals who have struggled with chronic dieting, disordered eating, and eating disorders. And if you've chosen to listen into this, my guess is that you've got some familiarity with it. You may have read about intuitive eating somewhere, been introduced to it by someone you follow on social media, or even dabbled in it yourself. But as is the case with most things, there is always nuance, the grey areas that can't always be described or outlined clearly. And intuitive eating is no exception. The challenge of something gaining mainstream popularity is that it can be promoted in a way that doesn't highlight these grey areas. There's been a lot of misinformation circulating about intuitive eating and what it is and what it isn't. You can go to episode 1 of Cake Over Keto for more beef on that. So if you're trying to heal your relationship with food, to end cycles of guilt and body shame, intuitive eating can feel like something else you've got to get right. And as a human being and a professional who practices in intuitive eating, I can tell you right now that it's not for everyone all of the time, despite the message from its creators, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Reich. It certainly isn't the only way to heal your relationship with food, and I'm going to give you 5 reasons why today. Now, there are 10 principles of intuitive eating I'm just going to run through first. They are, number 1, reject the diet mentality. Get rid of those beliefs around food. Honour your hunger. Eat when you're hungry. Make peace with food. Number 4, challenge the food police. 5, discover the satisfaction factor. Number 6, feel your fullness. Number 7, cope with your emotions with kindness. Number 8, respect your body. 9 is movement. Feel the difference. They talk about joyful movement. And number 10 is honor your health with gentle nutrition. So I want you to imagine for a moment, these 10 principles go together a bit like onions, celery, herbs, garlic, tomatoes, meat, cheese, and pasta. Different single ingredients, but you only get the real deal when you layer them together. Put them all together, a bit like a lasagna. To embrace intuitive eating, you need to understand that each individual principle on its own, but also integrate them together. Just like you can't call tomatoes and cheese a lasagna, with intuitive eating, you can't cherry pick a couple of the principles and call it intuitive eating. But this tends to happen because many folk tend to focus purely on the hunger and fullness elements of intuitive eating, which get simplified to just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And to be honest, it's no wonder it doesn't work, because these 2 principles aren't enough on their own. You need to take these into context of the remaining 8 principles. And intuitive eating is about trusting your inner body wisdom to make choices around food that feel good in your body, without judgment, without influence from diet culture. It's about connecting with your body, tuning and turning towards its needs and wants, and taking steps to meet those needs. And so we're all born with the skill to eat when we're hungry and stop when we're full, and to eat satisfying foods. But as we grow up, that can change because of the messages we hear and internalize about body ideals, and foods are given labels of hierarchy, which makes them good or bad. So many of us lose feelings of peace and freedom and choice around food. So intuitive eating is learning to reclaim those back. When we filter out the noise and the influence that diet culture presents to us as false truths, we can then truly listen to what our body wants and needs from food. Intuitive eating can be difficult and challenging. It's the complete opposite of how we've been taught to think about food. So it isn't black or white. It's grey, and there is no one right way. So I've got 5 reasons to share with you today that I hope will explain why intuitive eating is not just a matter of tuning into your body and, like waving a magic wand, hey presto, you're done. Wouldn't that be amazing? But that's not what happens. Tune in for the rest. The first reason why intuitive eating may not be working is because you are disconnected from your body, perhaps because you've dieted for so long. Now, the main emphasis with intuitive eating is moving towards an embodied eating experience that kind of relies on your body sensations, the physical sensations, to guide your hunger, food choices too, and fullness. Being able to eat intuitively hinges on what's called interoceptive awareness. This is the ability to perceive those physical sensations that come from within your body, like the urge you get when you need to go for a wee. But what if being attuned to your body's sensations feels inaccessible? Like there's nothing there, there's nobody home. In fact, you don't even know what you're looking for. And this is often the challenge with chronic dieters, because dieting, which is essentially following a set of external rules to guide your food choices rather than listen to your body's internal cues, that blunts your innate response to hunger and fullness. So many of my clients have no idea what hunger feels like. I never feel hungry, they say. Well, maybe they know the give me some goddamn food right now sort of hunger, but they don't know how to find the emerging signs or even the comfortable fullness either on the other side, because they've been stuck in never-ending cycles of restrict, binge, repent. Now, you try to be controlled with your eating, so it's not enough if you're kind of restricting, so you struggle to maintain that, which is when your body takes over and says, eat. So you do, and quickly, and a lot, to catch up, which often leaves you feeling overly full, uncomfortably full. And then that kind of opens up the door for the guilt and the shame, and you rinse and repeat. And prolonged years engaging in that sort of behavior, that pattern, can make it hard to even know where your body's internal cues are coming from. Never mind what they're trying to tell you, because you've ignored them. The plans that you followed have told you what to eat, when and how much. So what do you want to ask your body for? And so it's likely that as a result, your body's clues have gone underground. I mean, why would they hang around if you're not even going to try and listen? It's like asking my lad to get dressed for school and put his shoes on 15 times in the morning. I kind of give up in the end. It can be scary to learn to live in your body after so many years of dieting or struggling with an eating disorder. And this might mean that learning to eat intuitively is not the priority, especially if you are experiencing an extreme disconnect with your body. This isn't to say that intuitive eating can't become a goal to work towards, but what might be more important in those initial stages is getting some help for you to eat to support your body adequately. And in some cases, weight restoration is necessary to regain your body's appropriate hunger and fullness cues. Reason number 2 why intuitive eating might not be working for you is because you're experiencing high levels of stress, and that doesn't allow for reliable hunger and fullness cues. And let's face it, life throws stuff at us all the time, but if the last 2 years are anything to go by, it can be bloody stressful. And so it's important to kind of acknowledge and understand that stress is felt in our physical body. It's not just in our head. And it can show up in many different ways, like muscle tension, disrupted sleep, as well as memory loss and mood changes. And for some, high levels of stress can shut down your ability to connect with or engage in your own body. Neurodivergent people, for example, may struggle particularly to make sense of interoceptive information due to sensory processing difficulties. And this is something that I can go into more in another episode. But coming back to the stress, it releases cortisol, and that can trigger various physical sensations in the body like nausea, reduced appetite, and early satiety, which is essentially kind of filling up quite quickly. So all of those can make it difficult to read your body's hunger and fullness cues appropriately. And we know that, from research, that stress and anxiety can contribute to digestive problems because of the whole gut-brain connection. So that is another thing that can make it more challenging to understand what your body is needing. Hunger cues and anxiety signals are very, very similar. Intuitively eating under these circumstances can make it sometimes quite impossible to get in what your body actually needs. And this is what happens to me when I get stressed. I get reduced appetite, I feel a bit queasy, I feel like my stomach's tied in knots. And therefore, I end up feeling exhausted and more tired, which affects my coping strategies because I haven't eaten enough. Now, this isn't to say that you can't intuitively eat if you're experiencing stress, but you may find exploring how you respond to and cope with stress needs to run alongside or come before you do that. Number 3, you don't feel at home or safe in your body. So being able to eat intuitively relies on being attuned to all sorts of different body needs, not just hunger and fullness. So it could be the need to pause and rest, but it could also be the need to express yourself, set boundaries, and ultimately take full responsibility for your own emotional well-being. And in order to recognize any of those needs, you need to be able to be present in your own body, living in it, to feel what's going on inside it. Now, what might seem strange is that many of us aren't living in our bodies. We are disconnected. Chronic dieters, again, for example, but also for those who've experienced trauma. In this case, disconnection is a valid coping and survival mechanism. And if you've experienced trauma or being connected to your own body feels distressing in any way, then dissociating and leaving your body can be a form of self-preservation. And it might be difficult to feel safe trying to attune to your body's needs if you feel your body has failed you in some way or you've had an experience that makes it feel unsafe. And we live in a world that doesn't always make it easy to live in the body that we were given. If we've come in a different shape, size, ability, or skin color. And if it feels unsafe to be with or be in your body, it is not your fault by any means. But understanding this can help increase awareness as to why it might feel uncomfortable, even distressing, to pay attention to what your body is feeling and needing, including hunger and fullness cues. And in this situation, forcing yourself to be attuned to your body's needs in an effort to practice intuitive eating might actually be forcing you to live in more distress. So until the underlying trauma is addressed and resolved, or until there is more healing through the trauma you've experienced in your body, intuitive eating may not feel like a safe practice for you. And again, this isn't to say that this will always be the case, but this can help create awareness around what you might be experiencing if you tried to practice intuitive eating and felt unable to do so, especially with a history of trauma. Number 4, your idea of intuitive eating working, quote unquote, is you're losing weight. Now, intuitive eating is a weight inclusive model. And this means that weight is not a thing, it's not a focus. It was never created for weight loss or changing our appearance or shape, although I do see intuitive eating being sold for the purposes of weight loss. This is absolutely incorrect and inappropriate. It's about the diet industry co-opting non-diet language and the language of intuitive eating for the benefit of their pocket. So please know, intuitive eating is for healing your relationship with food and body. That can't happen if you're trying to manipulate it. But when you've been told, and particularly if it's been for a long time, that weight is important, when you've internalized the belief that weight loss will bring you happiness and better health and better relationships and life success, it's not easy to just switch that off. Even experienced intuitive eaters, including me, find sometimes that a desire to lose weight can pop up again. Doesn't mean you failed. But what intuitive eating teaches you is to sit with that desire. I help my clients to decode it and ultimately to navigate that so you can move on with a greater sense of body respect. So no, I'm not going to sit here and dictate you need to get rid yourself of that belief before you embark on intuitive eating. But I do invite you to consider what it might be like to let go of the need to shrink your body. In fact, my next episode is all about letting go of wanting to lose weight, so I recommend you tune into that. But you see, 3 things can happen to your weight when you begin intuitive eating. You can stay the same, you can lose weight, and you can gain weight. And with reference to the last one, you may gain weight initially as you learn to kind of find your food freedom without restriction, but then it settles down to your body's natural set point. The thing is, nobody knows the outcome. Nobody knows which way it will go, which is scary in itself, the not knowing. But we have to learn how to trust the process. Which leads us on to number 5. You fear weight gain. Now, many people embark on their intuitive eating journey and still end up restricting because they fear the weight gain. So they stop again. They tell themselves they're eating intuitively, but actually the reality is they don't allow themselves to have the food that is truly satisfying because of the rules and beliefs about maybe what's healthy or what's good. So they don't have the pasta, they have the salad because they don't want to get bigger. They avoid the snacks and the pudding and the carbs because they continue to chase that thinner body. Now they might be eating mindfully, but this isn't intuitive eating. So if you're holding on to any kind of diet beliefs, a restrictive mindset, or not truly trying to heal your relationship with food, and that can even be in our subconscious mind. If you have any diet mentality at play, you're unlikely to gain all the benefits of intuitive eating. I know it can feel a lot to kind of process, and it feels counterintuitive to go against everything that you've kind of been taught. But it's so worth it to go all in. And what's really cool is that after a while, the foods that used to be forbidden and also binged on will lose their power. In the absence of dieting, most people can regulate their intake on their own quite nicely, whilst respecting their body and honouring their health. I'm sure it's fun to eat the biscuits or the ice cream, but intuitive eaters can do so without overthinking it, without binging, without the guilt or shame. I talk about this in episode 1 again. Isn't not dieting just an excuse to eat everything? Go and have a listen if you haven't already. But you know, when we dig beneath our desire to lose weight, we often find it's not about the weight or the food at all. As humans, it's often about our deep, raw, vulnerable need to be seen, loved, and accepted. That's a real hunger that food will never solve. So hear me when I say you are enough. You always have been and you always will be. Your healing lies in your own realization, acceptance of how incredible you are today, right now, without any conditions. Your healing lies within you, always. I hope this has been enlightening and helpful. If you feel like you might benefit from some help with intuitive eating, hold out for the pick and mix coming up in just a second. Okay, folks, let's open up the pick and mix. Today, I have 5 credible resources to help you on your intuitive eating journey. Now, none of these are promoting weight loss without dieting. Now, there's quite a lot of books out there that are doing this. They're jumping on the whole intuitive eating bandwagon. So if you do seize those, then walk away very quickly. All the details of where to find the ones that I'm recommending will be in the show notes. Now, I can't talk about intuitive eating without the book that started it all. So Intuitive Eating, a revolutionary anti-diet approach, is now in its 4th edition, published by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Reich. This is the most recent edition that came out in 2020. Nice and easy to read. And I like the audio versions, as with many of the books that I listen to or read. And this is a great place to start. And I say start because I'm wary of recommending self-help books that imply maybe that they can completely heal or cure you on their own. That's often not the case. But they've also now released an intuitive eating journal, which you actually write in, which I really like. I love the kind of the self-exploratory stuff, and it gives you prompts and different areas of the different principles to focus on. The next one is a pack of cards. These are Making Peace. 59 anti-diet strategies to end chronic dieting and find joy in eating. Now, these are a joint venture by 2 really great people that I follow. One is Christy Harrison. Now, she wrote the anti-diet book, Reclaim Your Time, Money, Wellbeing and Happiness Through Intuitive Eating. Again, links will be in the show notes. And Judith Matz, who I love her body positivity card deck. And she also wrote the Diet Survivor's Handbook, if you've ever read that. Great little things that you can kind of just carry in your bag, put somewhere to kind of prompt or remind you. And it makes, I think, some parts of the intuitive eating doable, like little bite-sized snippets that feel that you can just, you know, kind of step into it without feeling overwhelmed by the whole process. Now, number 3 is something a bit different. This is a book called Anchored: How to Befriend Your Nervous System Using Polyvagal Theory by Deb Dana. And I use polyvagal work in my practice. And this is what's going to make the difference if your reasons for intuitive eating not working have anything to do with stress and trauma. So if you have experienced trauma or you find you dissociate and detach from your body, read this book. She makes really complex stuff quite readable. And it's ultimately about helping you find safety in your body again. Next one is a compassionate body scan. Again, comes back to when we're feeling stressed or traumatized. We get out of our body. We need to come back into our body, but find a way to do that safely. So this is a meditation that's, the link is in the show notes, by Dr. Kristen Neff. And I love this woman. She's like incredible. If you find it difficult to feel your internal body signals, then experimenting with mindfulness exercises like this can help you become more aware of your body's sensations. There are some more compassionate exercises on the page that I'm sharing too. So yeah, it could be worth a look at. And the last one is a book called Fear of Weight Gain by Tabitha Farrar. And I've mentioned this back in episode 2, What Lies Beneath the Number on the Scales, and it's worth another mention here. Tabitha helps you really understand how fear shows up in your body, the sensations and the behaviors, and ultimately how to find peace and acceptance. So that's it from me, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like what you've heard, please do subscribe and go and tell your friends, because I don't want you to miss out on what's coming up in my next episode. Don't forget letting go of wanting to lose weight. If you'd like to carry on the conversation, please email me at mel@wakemannutrition.com or come and find me on Instagram at Cake Over Keto. I would love to hear from you. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.